myself up here. We're starting. And we're in. We're officially in the Patreon. I've broken through the threshold to the Patreon universe. Here we are. I'm coming to you because I have a little bit of a side quest going on here on the Patreon. I've been trying to think of extra stuff to do on here, believe it or not, for a while. And, I've been tinkering around. And there's this book I've been wanting to just re-listen to on Audible, reread, retake in the information, however you want to say it. I'm basically reading the words in my mind as I listen to them through my ears. It doesn't matter. What I want to do, and I've wanted to do it for a while, is just take books, strip the, cliff notes, and be like, here you go. You've read a book, but it's hard for me to stick to it. I don't know why. Because I start reading one book and I go, is this really the best book I could do right now? And I believe it or not, I've done those with 4 or 5 different books that I've just abandoned. But there's been one book that's been just kind of burning in the back of my mind. And the book is called You Can't Win by Jack Black. Not Jack Black, Tenacious D, the actor Jack Black. I'm talking about Jack Black, a burglar in the how the fuck do you even say that? A burglar. A thief, a sneak thief from the 1930s who wrote an autobiography about how he grew up, his exploits, stealing stuff from people out west. And, I think he was in like Salt Lake and all of these, almost like Wild West, the end of the Wild West in the 1930s, if that's even historically accurate. Just his life during that time period, being a criminal, being caught, getting out, and just kind of his rise in underworldly glory as a criminal during that time period. I've read it before, and it was just I thought it was a really amusing, just a fun book. I said, you know what? This is a purely fun book. I had been trying these other books that are like this dense psychological theory that I don't even really understand myself. And I'm like, why would I subject somebody else to this? Why not give people a fun time? I'm trying to dissect these complicated books. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm done school. I don't have to do this anymore. So this book was on the back of my mind. You Can't Win by Jack Black. It would always come up and I go, not now. I'll do it later. Then one day I decide, you know what? Yeah, why not just do it? So I'm a bit long-winded. I apologize. But I'm saying all that to say this. I start outlining the book, You Can't Win by Jack Black. Again, it's his autobiography. And I'm struck with another idea. I go, whoa. This is the idea that the other idea was really bringing me to. And this idea, this is the one I'm actually officially coming to you guys with, is I'm going to start starting with the book You Can't Win, I'm going to take autobiographies and memoirs and just read them, go through them, take notes, just to lay out like the events of their lives, the important stuff, just scrapping all of the other stuff, like, if there's like flowery prose, if it's beautiful, obviously, I'll probably play it for you guys word for word. But if it's just like all these unnecessary details, stripping them out and being like, hey, here's this guy. Here's his whole life story, just so you know it. And as a little icing on the cake, what I'm going to try to do is take little notes based on like, what is this person's value system? What do they think is important? What are their beliefs? What are the things they did? What are their habits? All this stuff, and compile them into a little database. And as we go through them, as we get like, say we're into like 4 or 5 different people, we have a good idea of like, this is what they believe, this is what they did in life, and this was the outcome. This is how they felt about their life after the fact. My idea is to start comparing these different autobiographies based on their own thoughts and reflections, and to see if we can answer the old question, what is the exact stuff of a life well lived? Can I take pieces of autobiographies or take entire autobiographies? How do we compare and contrast? And maybe see if we can come up with maybe some proof as to what potentially is the best way to approach life if your goal is contentment, peace, and happiness. That's all I'm trying to do. What do you say, dude? I'm going to do it anyway, and even if you don't like that part of it, you'll get to just sit back and just learn about different people and be like, holy shit, I didn't know, this guy did this, and you'll be able to spit out the lives of anything from the saints to criminals to political figures, historical figures, writers, actors, everything. I'm going to try to take a pretty wide swath of humanity. Although people who write memoirs are maybe are alike in some weird way because, who else is going to do that? But that's my plan. So without further ado, let's get into the first one. You Can't Win by Jack Black. Again, not Jack Black, Tenacious D. I'm talking about Jack Black, the criminal from the 1930s. There you go. Okay, so again, the story is called You Can't Win by Jack Black. And his memoir begins with him in a library. He's old now. I think he's in his 40s or 50s. He's working as a librarian. And he's just looking at his face in the mirror. He's just, the beginning of it starts with him talking about how wrinkled his forehead is and how cold and calculating his eyes are. And how he feels like he shouldn't be in that library. He's too tough for the library. He keeps talking about how like people won't even look at him. My eyes tell them I'm a criminal. So yeah, the first part just establishes that he's out of place in the library. Here is this former criminal now having this like soft-handed job of handing people books. He can't square it with himself. And then from that opening scene, he takes us on a little trip down memory lane, starting with the first pivotal experience of his life, his mother's death. Jack Black was left motherless at 10 years old, and one of his last memories of his mother was her bringing him a toothbrush, and he looked at it and threw it on the ground and told her that he would not be using girl things, which is kind of tight because I guess back in the 1920s, dudes thought brushing your teeth was gay. That's a pleasant surprise. That's a nice thing to start off with, being like, hell yeah, I like the world we're building here. I like to know how much more seriously people took not being gay in the 1920s. Apparently, brushing your teeth was for girls. And also, it kind of like threw me for a loop because I was like, damn, when did toothbrushes even come out? Apparently, they've been around since like, I don't know, ancient Egypt. They've been around for a very long time. But the first modern mass-produced toothbrush was invented by an Englishman, William Addis, in the late 1700s, who was in jail for causing a riot. And back in the 1700s, when you'd be in jail, they would just give you a wet rag, like with some salt and chimney soot on it, and you would just kind of wipe your chompers down after a meal. But William Addis, while in jail for starting a riot, decided that that wasn't cutting it, and he took a bone from one of his meals, drilled a bunch of holes in the end, and added some tufts of animal hair, glued them down, and he used that. And then once he got out of jail, he started a toothbrush company and started mass manufacturing toothbrushes. Became a rich man. And that toothbrush company is still around in the UK, and they make like 70 million toothbrushes a year. But that's a side fact. I thought that was kind of interesting. So anyway, back to Jack Black in the library. He's still staring at his face, thinking about how badass he looks, thinking about his dead mother, who apparently was like kind of pleased. That's what he said. He's like, when I threw my toothbrush on the floor, my mother was pleased. So now we go from that little memory to now we're at his mother's funeral, and he claims that he cried, but could have not cried if he wanted to, but figured that he just would cry because everyone else was crying, and he figured, what the heck? He didn't want to ruin a good time. Him and his father sold their house after their mother's death, and they moved into a little hotel. There weren't any schools available in the area, so Jack just kind of ran around the hotel like a little feral animal until his father came home from work, fed him, and put him to bed. Eventually, this became a problem for his father, his sons running about wildly throughout the day, so his father put him in a Catholic school some 25 miles away, which back then, this Catholic school was just a convent full of nuns and one old priest. Jack was 10 years old at the time, and he actually loved this. He loved Catholic school. He got to just wander the grounds, pick berries, help out. They had like animals and horses and shit. He got to help them. He never went home for holidays like the other boys, so the sisters kind of took him in during these times, gave him special duties, let him run errands into the village. He'd also made friends with an old Confederate soldier who served as the groundskeeper. And at a young age, Jack felt split between two possible life paths. He's 10 or 11 years old, and he had originally been thinking of becoming a quiet, steady priest. But now he's checking out this Confederate soldier, this ex-Confederate soldier, and being like, I don't know, it would be kind of tight to become a grizzled, limping ex-soldier full of cool war stories. Which is kind of funny to think about a young boy just watching a guy limp down the street and be like, sweet, that's what I want to do when I grow up. So the school eventually appointed young Jack Black, to the postmaster position, meaning he got to ride to the village daily with the retired Confederate soldier, Tommy, and they would pick up the mail and bring it back to school. On one of these trips, Tommy read the newspaper, and he saw that Jesse James had been murdered. Tommy, the ex-Confederate soldier, was super sad. He told Jack about Jesse James. Jack Black was obviously like, holy shit, that guy sounds awesome. Jack Black goes back to his school, tells the other kids about it, and some of the older kids knew who Jesse James was, and they were blown. So young Jack decides, in the spirit of Jesse James, he was going to get that newspaper that him and his ex-Confederate soldier friend Tommy had read. And he said, you know what? I'm going to pinch that newspaper off of the head nun's desk so I can read all about Jesse James for myself. I think he just got some pictures shown to him. He said, I want to read the whole story. So Jack Black does this. He steals the paper, and he gets super pumped on the story, and he made sure to share the paper around with the other boys. And eventually, one of the boys gets caught with the paper, the story of Jesse James, and the nun traced the paper back to Jack. He fesses up that he took it from her desk. He gets fired from the postmaster position and is subsequently disgraced. But then one of his favorite teachers tells him that she would keep getting him newspapers if he liked. And Jack Black, reflecting on this situation, says, I was on fire for papers. Young Jack Black is apparently very stoked to get his hands on the news, and the young nun just keeps feeding him newspapers, letting him read a paper and return it every day. So Jack got to follow up on the story of the James boys and read about the other crimes in the newspaper going on, people murdering people, thefts, and he would read these stories and imagine himself alongside of the criminals he read about, committing crimes with them. At 14, Jack's too old to go to the Catholic school, the convent. He's got to go home. So before he leaves, he finds the ex-Confederate soldier, his buddy Tommy. He goes, brother, I got to go. The Confederate soldier said, let me take you into the village one more time. He buys Jack a knife. Jack is obviously pumped as fuck. He goes, thank you for the knife. He goes back to the school to say his goodbyes. He thinks about kissing the nun who let him read those newspapers, but he says he chickened out and was picked up by his father and brought back to that same old hotel room he used to run around as a child. There's a short period. Jack has nothing to do. He's 14 years old. He just sits around all day and reads every book and newspaper he can find. At nighttime, his father gets home from work. They take an hour-long walk, and then they go to bed. One night out on these walks, Jack and his father came across some guy beating the shit out of a horse and cursing at his horse. Jack stops and stares at the man. His father told him to come along and to stop listening to cuss words. Jack informed his father that he wasn't listening to cuss words, but instead had been praying for the man as he prayed for all sinners, and his father just stood there, stared at him for a while, and then held his hand, and they walked home silently. For the rest of the night, his father sat in a chair and stared at the wall. Thomas bade him good night and went to sleep. I included this little scene because I thought it just made me laugh. You just see a guy beating the shit out of a horse. You learn your 14-year-old son is praying for sinners. And back then, dudes could not talk. Brushing your teeth was sus, dude. If he had stopped him and I love you so much, son, it would have been, I don't know. He couldn't do it. So he just stared at his son, held his hand, which is crazy, just to hold your 14-year-old son's hand. And the weirdest part is a guy getting home. There's nothing to do. And his dad just sat in a chair and stared at a wall, obviously processing his feelings about the whole thing and what he had seen. And Jack went to sleep. So the next evening before bedtime, his father asked him how many prayers he knew. Jack told him all. He's like, I know all the prayers. He goes, do you know how to read? Jack says, yes, sir. Yes, I do. His father goes, what about the times tables? Jack sucks at the times tables. And his dad was apparently really good at math. So his dad goes, I think you should go to more school. So he goes to the local school, which had been built while Jack was away at the convent Catholic school. Jack ends up being a bad boy. He's playing hooky. He's messing around. After school, he would find cheap 10-cent crime novels and mystery novels and just read as many as they could. So he kind of starts itching for adventure. And as time goes on, he becomes kind of like a kid that other kids looked up to. He kind of got to walk around by himself all day. He didn't have to answer to anybody. He knew all of the town's bad men. He would take other kids over to the town drunks and all these guys who had killed somebody. There was old soldiers that almost got hung. There was dudes who got out of jail, and Jack knew all of these guys and just kind of probably bothered them while they laid there viciously hungover. And then one day, to add to Jack's cool points, an old woman that he was doing some chores for discovered 2 old pistols left over from the Civil War. She tells young Jack to take them and bury them somewhere, that she never wants to see them again. Jack obviously kept them and began wearing them around. One day, while admiring his pistols, Jack decided, you know what? It's time I become somebody. I have pistols. I'm 14 or 15 years old. It's time I become a man. So his new hero at this point, I guess Jesse James was kind of on the back of his mind. His new hero was this guy who owned the hotel him and his father stayed at, The man lived in one of the rooms and tended the bar in the lobby. He was a big, fat man who wore suits and had a fancy pocket watch. The man's name was Cy, and he was politically connected. His role in town was something of a fixer, and if one of the locals who frequented his bar got into any trouble, they would come to Cy, and he would, with his connections, go to City Hall, the police precinct, and he would call in favors and have, whatever. The case would get reduced or just dismissed altogether. Cy never took money for this, but when elections came up, he'd call on favors and have people vote this way or that, participate in fundraisers, etc. Jack thought this was really cool. Jack wants to be like him, so he starts copying everything about this guy, how he walks, how he talks, the way he wore his hat toward the back of his head. And this is kind of a theme that comes up for Jack. In his early years, he just sees dudes and just completely jacks their swag. It's crazy. So Jack's like trying to be like this guy. He has a hat. He's wearing it on the back of his head. He's talking loud like him. He's trying to like hold court the way this big fat man does. And everything's going pretty well. He's got pistols. He just jacked size swag. Everything's going well. But then one day, Jack saw another guy. He's chilling. He's outside of the train station, and a cool, tall, mysterious man in a gray suit gets off the train all alone. Jack, having nothing else to do, follows this man to the hotel. The guy leaves a suitcase at the front desk and I guess went to the bathroom. And Jack stood there and just in all of this guy's suitcase. There's all these stickers of faraway places, dents from travel. And Jack, just mystified by this thing, goes upstairs and just can't stop thinking about his suitcase. He's like, holy shit, dude. I'm going to be the gray man. Fuck Cy. I'm going to start jacking the gray man swag. So from then on, he puts his hat forward. He starts walking faster like the guy in the gray suit. He doesn't worry about talking loud or acting like Cy or holding court. All he thought about was getting a gray suit, growing a mustache like the gray man's, and of course, his big leather travel trunk. But there was a problem. All of his stuff cost money. I guess besides the mustache, that's just time. And he didn't have any of it. So he was like, fuck, I need some skrill so I can cop a gray suit, get a travel case, and just become the gray man. So Jack, in a bit of a pickle, decides to talk to his old hero, Cy, about his problem. Cy ends up giving him a job cleaning the bar and running errands. Jack is very pumped. With this job, Jack feels like, I think he's getting $3 a week, by the way. With this job, Jack feels that he shall finally enter the world of men. As soon as Cy announced to Jack that he had given him a job, Jack, fully stoked, grabbed a broom right then and there and started sweeping immediately. Cy was pleased. After a week, Cy beckons Jack into his office, breaks him off with $3 whole. Jack is floored. He can already taste the gray suit and suitcase. All he had to do was keep sweeping floors and running errands, and he told himself he'd be a tall, handsome, world-traveled mystery man in no time. When his father came home, Jack showed his father his $3. He had been worried about this. He thought his dad would not be wanting him to work in that place. But he said, you know what? I got to be honest. I got to be square with my father. He goes, Dad, check this $3 out. He said, I want you to mind my money for me, Father. You hold it, and when I need it, I'll tell you, and you got to give it back to me. And his dad was like, yeah, whatever. His dad is kind of like this weird character. He's like very kind of strict and severe, but he's also kind of like, whatever, man. He's like, yeah, sure. You want to go work in the bar? Go ahead. And everything was going good until report card day. Jack, his report card wasn't bad. He was actually kind of stoked on it. He goes and shows his dad, and his report card showed that he was making good progress at the school, and he was proud of it. So he goes, Dad, check it out. But his dad didn't really care. He had like good grades in all these subjects. His dad was still a stickler for the times table. So he goes, okay, yeah, you're doing all right in school. You should be doing good in school. He goes, what's good with your times tables? But this time, Jack was ready. His dad goes, 8 times 9. Jack goes, 72, sir. 7 times 6, 42, sir. And then his father, and he's not showing any emotion, then his father hits him with a dagger. His father goes, okay, 8 times 13. The problem froze Jack stiff. He got mad, red in the face. Then he grabbed a pencil and paper and figured it out. But he took this 13 times tables as an affront on his honor. What the hell was his dad doing? Jack was so disgraced by his father hitting him with like a, it's an impossible times tables to figure out in your head. Jack is like, this is fucking bullshit. So then he starts thinking about, I should take my pistols and my $3 silver and head somewhere else. Somewhere I can get a square deal. Quote, that's his words. Then, shortly after the Times Tables debacle, his father informed Jack that they would be headed to Kansas City due to a job promotion that he finally got, and that Jack could quit school and get a full-time job once they were there. I guess his dad wanted to see if he had learned. If he could do 8 times 13, his dad would probably be like, yo, you got to stay in school. But since Jack failed 8 times 13, his dad decided, all right, dude, you're a fucking dumbass. Just get a job. And you might be thinking, isn't that an affront to Jack's honor? How could Jack possibly go along with that? But you have to remember, Jack is single-mindedly focused on his grizzly so he can get this gray suit and travel suitcase and grow a mustache. That's all he cares about at this point. So the idea of working full-time sounded pretty good to him. So Jack is like, yep, let's do it. He says goodbye to Cy. Cy gives him a pretty cool silver watch. Jack's stoked on that. And then Jack went back to one of the town bad men, Bev, a retired soldier, and drunk. Told him the news, and the guy was like, yeah, dude, fucking sweet. Please leave me alone. But did big up Jack Black for having guns. He goes, dude, do you have guns? Jack Black goes, yeah, I got 2 pistols. What about them? The old drunk told him, dude, that's what's up. That's so cool. It's cool you have guns. You'll be fine in the big city. Don't even worry about it. And then Jack gave him a silver dollar, told him to go get himself some whiskey, and walked off. So we find ourselves in Kansas City finally, and Jack's dad has to travel now a lot for work. So at first, Jack's just in this boarding house run by a mean old widow and her 2 small kids. And the widow, in a, kind of a gesture of kindness, gave Jack a copy of The Count of Monte Cristo. And Jack reads this and gets super fired up on the idea of travel, romance, and excitement all over again. It all starts pouring back in over him. I guess the buzz of being in the new city's wearing off. Jack starts reading other books, just getting more and more floored on the idea of living an adventurous life. And then finally, Jack runs out of all the silver dollars he saved up and decided he would go and find some work. And it's kind of funny because he's walking by. There's this crabby old fucking widow just scrubbing the porch all red-faced and hot. And Jack stops right before her in front of the steps and goes, heading off to find some work, ma'am. And the lady was like, it's about goddamn time. You're sitting in that room all day doing nothing. Go get yourself a job. And Jack said, I will, ma'am. So Jack just goes store to store to store to store day after day. Finally, he gets hired at a cigar store. Again, salary is $3 a week to sell cigars, cigs, and pipe tobacco. But the store's really slow, and Jack's kind of like, something's not adding up. Eventually, he learns that the cigar place was a front, a cover for an illegal gambling den that took place in the back of the shop. So Jack, whenever he wasn't working, hung in the gambling den, learning about cards, craps, and other tricks of the gambler's trade. His boss, Tex, he told Jack to never gamble or else he'd end up a penniless fool at 40 like himself. Next to the cigar shop was a married couple who sold milk. Jack would head over there daily to slug a cup of milk when things got slow. And the owner of the milk shop informed him that he was having a tough time collecting money from the women who ran the parlor houses in the Tenderloin district. Them hoe houses. The trouble was they bought a lot of milk, but that the women kept strange hours and were hard to find when payday came. So the milkman contracted Jack to head down to the whorehouses to collect. Jack obliged. And actually, Jack consulted Tex, the cigar shop owner, about this. He's like, how the hell do you collect money from whores? And Tex said, well, they'll be sleeping in the morning, and by nighttime, they're too drunk and fired up doing what they're doing. You can't bother them then. Hit them at 5 p.m. He's like, that's when whores chill. So Jack, on his first trip, equipped with Tex's advice, goes there at 5 p.m. And like Tex said, they were sure enough eating dinner, sitting down. Jack collects 3 out of the 5 outstanding milk bills. The milkman is super pleased. He goes, here's $1, Jack. So this went on for a little. Jack's making $3 a week. Now he's making $4 or $5 a week collecting milk money. And in kind of this period, he's just working on his grizzly, going and window shopping, just looking at suitcases in his off time, until one day, Jack was in a brothel, chasing milk money, faithful as ever, and the place got raided. So apparently there was him, 2 drunks, and then a hog farmer or 2. And then all of these hoes were in the place, and the police came in, and there was this big, just kind of kerfuffle. And what happened was the hog farmer was accusing one of those little hoes of stealing $100 from him, 2 $50 bills. He alleged that. So the police got involved. The police took everybody in the building. Even though Jack was like, look, I'm collecting milk money, they said, dude, get your ass in that goddamn wagon. So they go to the police station. The women, all the hoes, were brought into a room and searched. The 250s didn't come up. Jack was searched as well. Eventually, they had to search the hog farmer. The whore's lawyer was there just kind of like giving this guy hell, being like, you look like one of those dumbass hog farmers that doesn't even know where his goddamn money is. So the lawyer goes, hey, man, how about we search you? We just searched all these ladies. We're wasting the police, the captain's time. There's a big Irish captain there being like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Wasting his time. How do we know you don't have the fucking money on you and you're not a piece of shit? The hog farmer's like, I fucking resent that. You calling me a liar and a thief or whatever the hell you think I'm up to. And he goes, search me right now. They search the hog farmer and they do find the 250s in his coat pocket under a handkerchief. And they grabbed him and tossed him out onto the street. And they told the hoes to leave. And for some reason, they just locked Jack up until they could figure out who he was. Jack told them, he goes, dude, here's my milk bill. I'm trying to collect this milk money. And they go, yeah. We got to figure out who you are. So now terrified, Jack, just a boy, is locked up in a holding area. So he gets like through the bars and they tell him to wait in this little like barred hallway that's locked on both sides. And below him is kind of like the dining hall where all the adult prisoners are. And he just gets to watch this like gruesome dinner time routine. 100 smelly, shouting prisoners, half white guys, half black guys, pushing to the front of this line. Just like the stronger guys are obviously fighting. The weaker, younger, and older guys are kind of hanging back. But there's all these just strong guys just elbowing each other and hitting each other and just spitting and cursing at each other, trying to get to this front of this line that at the front of it was this huge black guy with a big hot cauldron of stew with a big ladle just dishing out dishes of stew. And anytime someone got too close or too greedy, he would take this big, wet, hot soup ladle and slap them with it as hard as he could. And then, this whole thing went on. It was like this gruesome scene for Jack to witness as a young boy, thinking like, holy fuck, that's how I'm going to be down there trying to eat. So then eventually, after everybody ate, the energy settled. Everyone was chilling. They all took their dirty soup bowls, and they would actually take their dirty bowls, and you had to throw them in your own cell. So then everyone got to gather in the common area. So people obviously light up cigs. The room's choked with smoke. A lot of the black inmates, according to Jack Black, started doing what's called buck dancing, where it's like a type of tap dancing. So just imagine you're sitting there. It's just like there's so much smoke he can hardly see. His eyes are burning. A bunch of black dudes are tap dancing. The white dudes are just kind of laughing and talking with each other. Even after pushing and fighting each other. After everyone ate and smoked, everyone's chilling, having a good old time. So the smoke gets so dense, Jack can barely see anything after a while. Eventually, the guards come in, lock everyone down. Jack is taken down another hallway and put into a cell in the women's wing of the prison where some guy, George, was staying. Apparently, George was like this big-time criminal who was paying the officers for a sweet room in the women's corridor. So George, seeing Jack and hearing his story, goes, what the fuck are you doing? And first of all, Jack got to the cell with him. Jack just stood in front of the bars like a dog with his hat on and just stared out the fucking bars. So George goes, what are you doing, dude? And he tells George the story, and George just kind of like smacks the bars, summons a sergeant. Sergeant comes right up because they're all getting paid by this guy. George goes, yo, man, get this guy out of here. He's fucking collecting milk money. He ended up in the hoe house. Let him go. George goes, I'll foot the bill, dispatch a messenger to this guy's boss. And, sure enough, in a little bit, both the milkman and Tex the gambler come to the station to vouch for Jack. They pick him up. They get him out of here. The ordeal it shook Jack a little bit, but he's right back onto his grizzly that next day, slanging cigars, collecting milk money. And eventually, he wound up back in that same hoe house that he got pinched from. And the girls, right away, there was a black maid there. She goes, oh, it's the boy. And she runs him straight to the madam. The head madam, she takes him into her room. She goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you. We've been worried sick about you. We should have came and helped you. Like, oh, whatever. They just, the madam, he's in a madam's room. He's fucking 14, 15 years old. She's just rubbing his back, dude. She's also getting dressed. So he doesn't really get into like what she was wearing. Girls back then had like a lot of shit they had to put on. But still, he's in a madam's room. And young Jack is not a sexual being at all. At 15, I would have been, I would have had steam coming out of my ears. Not bragging, it's just the way I'm built. Young Jack, he gets into these sexual situations when he's young, and he doesn't care. He's just about his motherfucking bread. So he's in this lady's room, just like, whatever. He's actually looking at all her shit. He's like, damn, this lady has a lot of nice stuff. So she's rubbing his back. She goes, look, Jack, I want you to come down to dinner and eat dinner with my girls. They were worried sick about you. The least we can do is give you a good meal and let you chill. And Jack's like, yeah, I'd like a good meal in the company of some fine women. But in the meantime, Jack is just looking around the madam's room and being like, damn, this room looks so much nicer than the rooms of any of the women I've ever known, which at this point were only two. His mom, who was dead, and the widow. And his mom's room, from what I recalled, was rather stark. Just a bed, a dresser, and a rocking chair. While the widow's room was even starker, just a bed, a small dresser that had a cracked mirror on top of it. Which, I don't know, it made me laugh really hard to think about just an old, pissed off, red-faced, hot widow just grimacing in her reflection into a cracked mirror every day. It sounds like it's out of a fairy tale. It's terrible. Life was terrible back then, man. You take one thing from this, just good God, life fucking sucked in the 1930s. Although right now, Jack's in a pretty sweet sitch. So then Jack's comparing the starkness and the austerity of the rooms of the only two women he's ever known at this point, saying, dude, the madam's room is so nice. It's like, it's got carpets, a big soft bed, nice pillows, jewelry, mirrors that aren't cracked, clothes of all types. This is fucking awesome. So Jack is brought down to dinner and gets a greeting from all of the women, all the hoes. And Julia, the one who got accused of stealing, she was the youngest out of all the hoes, and she's very plump, by the way. She's a plump young girl. She came and gave Jack a kiss. So then they all sit down for a nice meal of fried chicken, green vegetables, and beer. Jack tried the beer. Wasn't for him. He says, how about you give me some of that milk? So Jack crushes milk, fried chicken, green vegetables. And Julia, the girl who had been accused of stealing the 250s from the hog farmer, who, by the way, Jack later learns from George the prisoner that chick definitely stole the 250s from him, and that while he was raising a big ruckus, she handed it off to one of the other hoes, who probably slipped it into his jacket at some point unnoticed, and that the policeman, all of them, either, or maybe they had found it on him and the lawyer slipped it into his jacket. He said the whole thing was a setup, kid. That chick definitely stole the money. But either way, Julia feels bad about it, and she goes, look, Jack, I feel so bad about this whole thing. Let me take you out on Sunday to ride some horses. Be a nice little day. Me and you, we'll ride some horses. We'll come back here. No problem. Jack goes, you know what? I'll meet you to ride some horses, Julia. You seem like a nice girl. So Jack gets a shave. He also he's on the fence about it. He goes, dude, what the fuck? This lady's 20 years old. What am I going to do with her? I'm a 15-year-old boy. I just want my goddamn gray suit in my suitcase. But for some reason, Jack goes, yeah, you know what? Maybe I can ride horses with this big fat whore. So Jack gets a shave, meets Julia on Sunday. They ride horses. They get rained on. So then they have to hang in a cabin for a little bit. And at every point in the story, I'm like, I mean, I know, it's illegal. Girls get in trouble. Good teachers get caught in bad situations in the same thing, trying to have sex with 15-year-olds. But I'll be honest, I'm kind of rooting for young Jack to get a little pussy. Yeah, you know what I mean? Nail me to the cross. I'm kind of like, come on, Jack. Like, fucking, you're in the cabin. What are you doing? But nothing. Jack remains a gentleman. They hang in the cabin for a little bit. They play some cards. Jack actually loses and throws all the cards in the fire. He's pissed off. I think he fashioned himself a bit of a gambler. But the fat whore, Julia, just destroys him in cards. So they go and they deliver the horses. After the rain clears, they deliver the horses. The fat man at the livery who, rents them to him. The fat man at the livery gives Jack a wink like, yo, bro, let's fucking go. But Jack's just like, nah, bro, it's nothing like that. After they eat, so, Julia, by the way, is starving at this point. She has a voracious appetite. So she goes, let's eat. Jack goes, yes, let's please eat. So she takes Jack to dinner, buys him, again, some fried chicken. Jack claims Julia, again, the chubbiest hoe of the hoe house, just couldn't get enough fried chicken. So after dinner, she buys Jack a cigar, and Jack puffs the cigar in front of her. He didn't really like cigars. He just thought they kind of made him a little nauseous, but he puffed it in front of her, and he thinks he did a pretty good job. And as he's smoking his cigar, feeling pretty regal after the horse ride with the hoe and the fried chicken dinner, now he's got a cigar. He's like, he's kind of feeling himself at this point. Julia just starts unloading her story onto Jack, and it's a pretty heavy story. Basically, Julia had gotten knocked up young and, ashamed and embarrassed, stole money from her father so she could run away and have the kid. So she gives birth to this baby, a runaway, kind of a family fugitive with her father's stolen money. The baby dies during birth. Terrible. Now, while giving birth, somebody stole all of Julia's clothes. She had back then people had one outfit. She had a dress. That was her gear. She has one dress, no other. And she can't like go home and try to find some other shit. So she's just like laying in this hospital, I guess with a hospital gown on. And they come to her like, yo, someone fucking ganked your clothes. She's like, well, fuck. Like, what am I going to do? She's like, a girl, I can't walk around in a fucking hospital gown. My baby's dead. This sucks. So then one of the doctors came up to her, and the doctor was drunk. The doctor told her, he said, look, I'll give you a dress, but I'm going to need some pussy. And she goes, fuck, I need to get a dress if I'm going to go out and get a job. Because now she's on the run. She's by herself now. She has no money. She goes, I can't go find a job. I can't go find good work in a hospital gown. People will think I'm crazy. I'm going to need that dress. So she breaks the doctor off. I guess with some head she probably fucked him. She fucks this doctor. The doctor breaks her off for the dress. And then there was an intern, like an understudy doctor, who finds out about the sitch, and he goes, yo, you're going to need some shoes. He dogs her for some shoes. Fucked up. And then a cook comes up and goes, you poor little thing. I'll give you a hat and some underwear. I'll complete your clothes collection, but I got to get a little pussy. And by the way, it's fucking awful. This is the exact outfit she wears on her date with Jack. Because she has a bunch of fine clothes, but she's only allowed to wear them in the whorehouse, or sometimes the madam takes them out of the whorehouse to show them off at bars. So all her other clothes are controlled by the madam. And like the whores, they can never save up money. The madam, they make sure that all their supplies cost like triple, so that anything they make, they'll never be able to save up enough so they can leave the whorehouse. The whorehouse is a permanent trap you find yourself in. And her only clothes that she owns that she's allowed to leave in are this like mismatched outfit that she had to fuck 3 guys for shortly after her child died in the hospital. So it's pretty fucking bleak. But then the cook, he goes, look, man, after he gives her some shoes and some underwear, or a hat and underwear to complete her ensemble, he goes, look, because he found that Julia informed him, she goes, I am going to walk out of here in this outfit because it depresses me so much to just see myself in it. I'm going to jump in the river and kill myself. The cook said, baby, no, chill. Look, take some of that money you stole from your dad, rent yourself a room for the night, and I will find you in the morning, and I'll have a job for you. I'm going to go find you a job. I know somebody who, you'd be perfect for it. No problem. Please don't jump in the river, sweet baby Julia. I got you. That night, he shows up at her boarding room, smashes one more time, and in the morning, the dude vanishes. Piece of shit. Scoundrel cook. Minor side note, I was chilling with my cousin recently, and I was telling my cousin about this part of this whole tale. And my cousin said that the cook was definitely the foulest dude out of all 3 of the guys who kind of propositioned Julia. And I think I got to agree with him. The cook was certainly the most foul. I mean, the doctor, obviously, he's not right. That wasn't right for him to start that whole thing off. That doctor is obviously a troubled man. The young intern, he's obviously following the doctor's lead. He's still not right either. But the cook, to put her up and put all these dreams in her head about the job, my cousin's right. The cook was the foulest out of the 3. Although we'll see, her troubles don't stop. Julia waits 3 days in the boarding house for this guy to return. He never comes back. Finally, Julia's totally out of money. She's in her shitty, fucked up outfit she had to fuck guys for. She goes, I'm going to jump in that goddamn river. But she reports to Jack she was too goddamn hungry, which is, we might have hit the absolute, rock bottom of girl logic here. Being too hungry to kill yourself might be the absolute epitome of girl brain. But anyway, again, this is a fucked up situation. So Julia that night, she's so goddamn hungry and weak that she can't muster up the strength to walk down to the river and just, I guess that's how you killed yourself back then. You just flung yourself into a river. So either way, Julia hangs around her room until 9 p.m. that third night, and her landlady comes up. Julia tells her all about her troubles, how she's out of money, her kid died. Maybe she left out the things she did for her clothes. I don't know. But the landlady grabs her and throws her down the steps and tells her to get out of there, which is like, holy fuck. So then a policeman sees this happen, and he goes, the hell's going on? Julia tells the policeman her troubles, and the policeman goes, oh, that's fucked up. Here's an address to a hotel. Go there, get yourself situated. You can stay there until you kind of get your stuff together. Don't worry about it. And Julia gets to the hotel, is greeted by that same black maid that let young Jack in to kind of reunite with the hoes. The policeman sent Julia right to the brothel. He probably got a little commission. And that's where Julia's been ever since. Pretty rotten deal. Jack offers Julia all of his money in the world. It's $40. He tells her, go get yourself a room, and I'll help you find a job. I found myself 2 jobs. I'll find you 1 job. You need to get a fresh start while you're young and strong, and you can still work, unlike all of those other aged whores. Again, Julia's the youngest whore in the whorehouse. The rest of them are these, like, girls getting older and just kind of, they just become drunks. Because it's a very hopeless situation. Once their last shred of beauty or sexual appeal fades, they just end up just a wretched old bitch on the streets. Like, it's fucked up. But even despite that, Julia declines Jack's money and tells him, no. I don't need your money. You're the only person who's ever been nice to me in my entire life. All I need you to do is help me escape. And Julia's plan is for her escape, she goes, I'll steal one of my outfits of fine clothes, something I can go get a job in. Unlike this mismatched, hellish outfit that reminds me of just my darkest hour every time I wear it. I'm going to smuggle my fine clothes, tie them up in a sheet, and then toss them out my window into the alley. So all you have to do is catch my clothes, hire a taxi driver. I think back then it was still a fucking horse and buggy. Hire a hack driver, horse and buggy, whatever. Catch my clothes. I'll sneak out, back to the back door, go through the backyard, hop the fence. I'll meet you in the alley, and then we got to take the fuck off. Jack goes, that's a pretty good plan. Jack was secretly hoping that he'd be able to go in there with his 2 pistols and say, why don't you guys let Julia out of here right now before things get ugly? But he decided, you know what, Julia, your plan might be a little bit better. Let's do this. So Jack now has a week. This is Sunday. They finish their dinner. I think she gives Jack a little kiss on the cheek, which is like nice. And then, so Jack's got a week to find a driver fit for the job to liberate this, voluptuous young prostitute from the hoe house and not be all weird about it. So Jack's got a week to find the right driver for the mission. He finds this guy named Cocky, who I guess was somebody he knew from kind of moving around town. And Cocky told Jack, when Cocky heard the deal, Cocky goes, look, Jack, I'll always help a young man get a girl and get up in the world, and I'll do it for free. Seems honorable. You're like, oh, what a nice guy. Saturday night comes. Jack meets Cocky. They drive to the alley behind the brothel. Julia tosses her bundled garments into the alley. Jack catches them, tosses them into the taxi carriage. Cocky snatches Julia off the fence, tosses her into the cab along with Jack, and her stuff. So they pull up on the boarding house. Jack takes some of Julia's money and goes and rents her a room. Julia's safe. The GTA mission is accomplished. Julia's in the room. Everything's good. Jack takes Cocky to the cigar store he works at, treats him to a fine cigar. He says, look, Cocky, I really appreciate you doing that for me. And Cocky, while smoking the cigar, tells Jack that he needs to start pimping Julia immediately. He said, look, kid, you're sitting on a gold mine with a young, strong girl like that on your hands. Start now. Don't let her talk to anybody else. Keep her isolated. Start pimping her out. You'll get a bunch of good years out of her. You're going to be a rich man. Jack, not wanting to pimp Julia whatsoever, tells Cocky, he goes, look, I'm going to let my hoe rest, and I'll probably start tomorrow. He had no desire to do it. He just kind of wanted to, I guess he didn't want to tell Cocky, that's terrible. I'm not doing that. Because maybe Cocky would have snatched her up and pimped her out himself. So then there's this period, again, Jack's working, collecting milk money, going to the cigar store. And Julia comes in to tell Jack after a few days, yo, man, I just got a job. I'm basically, I'm like a beer maid. I'm running beers to tables at a bar. Why don't you come in and check me out at work? Jack checks her out at work. Julia made $4 in one fucking night. And then she invites Jack back to her spot. Jack goes, no. I'm good. And Jack does say, he goes, dude, I just wasn't interested in chicks at this age. All I wanted to do was get back to the cigar spot so I can learn more about gambling, collect more milk bills. He still has that gray suit and travel trunk on his mind. That is his number one priority. It's his top priority. Gray suit, travel trunk, mustache. That's all he cared about. But Jack did start hanging out with Julia more and more. He even slept over one night. He was so tired, she said, well, goddamn it, boy, if you're that tired, go to sleep. And they slept over to, and Jack recalls, he goes, I do remember like our bodies touching in the middle of the night. And he just remember being like this, she's just hot and sticky. Look, don't be gross. Get your mind out of the gutter. I think he was just talking about her sweaty skin. Jack, a gentleman, pulls the sheet up, puts a barrier between them. Nothing still, dude. Still on his fucking grizzly. But they're friends. So they're walking around, they're doing stuff. One day they're walking around. Julia had this big plan, like she was going to learn how to dance and kind of like join the theater and become an entertainer. Jack's watching her dance for hours, being like, you're getting better. He's giving her feedback. He's like, we're going to get you into that theater, Julia. You're going to become a dancer. You're going to leave the bar life, the whore life. You're going to become a big dancer and entertainer in the theater. One day while they're walking about town, Jack feels a strong hand grip his shoulder. It's his father. In front of Julia, Jack's father reprimands him. He tells him that he is nothing but a lowly pimp. And then Julia just takes off. And when Jack's getting reprimanded for pimping, Julia takes off. Julia's never seen again. A few days after the fact, Jack goes to see her, but her room's just empty. Apparently his dad had called the police on her, and the landlady told him that she had run in her room, grabbed her shit, and just fucking dipped out. So Jack tells his dad everything. The night he gets kind of like pinched by his dad, he tells his dad everything. He tells him like his jobs he has, how he met Julia, how he rescued her. And his dad just looks at him. He pours his heart out to his father, and his dad looks at him and goes, well, Jack, you're going to be what you'll be, and there's nothing I can do to stop you. Which is kind of like a really, pretty fatalistic to be like, look, man, I don't really see your life working out that well or amounting to pretty much anything. You're just going to be, whatever you are, and it's, whatever. What can I do about it? And then the next day, his dad goes out on business. This is the last time he even talks to his dad. It's the big moment in Jack's life. Never sees his dad ever again, never speaks to his dad ever again after that. And he wasn't like really pissed at him. He was just kind of like, fuck, all right, man. Shit. So his dad's out on business. Jack now, Julia's gone. He's sick of the smoky gambling den. Sick of the crabby old bitch landlord always in his face, just fucking talking shit to him. He says, you know what, man? It's time I man up and head west. I take my 2 pistols, whatever silver dollars I have to my name, and just head west and start my own life as an adult. And that's where we'll leave it for now. We'll pick this back up. This is where Jack starts. He eventually becomes a criminal. This is the whole point of the book. Becomes a criminal, burglar, sneak thief. But this is Jack Black's origin story. He's kind of around a seedier element in life, and he decides, you know what? It's time I strike out west. Find adventure. We'll pick this back up later. And don't forget about the meta mission. We will eventually have a rich knowledge of a bunch of different autobiographies, types of people, outcome of their life, the way they feel about it, etc., etc. So maybe we can answer some of life's tougher questions, or else, worst case scenario, we'll keep just hearing a bunch of stories. So we'll see. That's the best we can do. God bless. Have a good time. Enjoy the week. Fare thee well for now, and now I can't stop talking like a guy from the 1930s. I've been doing it all week to my wife. I reckon I've been reckoning a lot. So either way, the book rules. I'm excited to get into more of it and to do other ones after it. I think it's a good long-term, we'll see. We'll see. Will this project capture my heart and attention? Sure feels like it might. God bless you again. Who's to say I can't hit you with 2 of those things? Have a good day. Adios.